That was The Substance, a 2024 satirical body horror film written, directed, co-edited, and co-produced by Coralie Fargeat. This movie stars Demi Moore, Margaret Qualley, and Dennis Quaid, amongst others, and the official IMDb plot synopsis is: a fading celebrity takes a black market drug, a cell-replacing substance that temporarily creates a younger, better version of herself. Pretty good description, I would say. Spoiler free, but
fair.
that's the basic plot for sure. Anything else to say to set this up? Spoiler free. That we can say. I didn't watch a trailer, so I don't know how much they give away.
I don't know. I think it's, you may have mentioned this already. I think it's very safe to say this is a body horror film.
Mm-hmm.
So, and who's watching that needs to know that going in.
Right. I would say if you can handle the worst of David Cronenberg films, and I don't mean worst as in quality, I mean worst as in content, extreme content, then ratchet it up another 2 notches, and that's what you get with The Substance.
Yeah.
Give it a little French filmmaker spin, I would say.
Yeah. It has the body horror of Cronenberg,
mm-hmm.
and the difficult personal dilemmas of Aronofsky.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah.
And the filmmaking unease of Kubrick.
Okay.
I was getting kind of some Safdie from it also.
Yeah, I could see that.
And just sort of the in your, this movie's very in your face
and stressful to watch.
And stressful, yeah.
Yes, intentionally stressful.
It for me, it went between Kubrick, and there's some very Kubrickian moments and shots in this movie. Yeah. And at other times it was Safdie, where it's just like being thrown at me and would not let me calm down at all.
Yeah. But very much remind me of like Requiem for a Dream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like Black Swan.
The last 10 minutes of Mother.
Oh, yeah. Good point. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Basic plot. You got this actress. She's aging. She loses her job.
Played by Demi Moore.
Played by Demi Moore. She's losing her job because she's too old to do it.
She's like a fitness instructor on TV.
Yep. And so she is contacted mysteriously and offered this fluid that will bring out the best of her younger self, essentially. And she takes the drug and things don't go well, I would say. She's surrounded by mostly men who have an expectation of her to always be beautiful. And that's really all they see about her. Like, they don't see much more beyond that. And because of living in that existence, that's kind of how she looks at herself as well. And so as she ages, she's having a real hard time grappling with the idea of self-image. And I don't know. Anything else we want to say spoiler free about just kind of the setup on this?
I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, that's good enough spoiler free, I guess.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's the basic plot. What you should know about the content, besides what we've already said, is that it's just extreme in general. Like the things that we've talked about, that we've compared it to, it's like extreme versions of those things. And it's pretty relentless for like 2 hours and 15 minutes. And so if you're like a sensitive viewer, or you just don't dip too far from the Disney fare, you probably shouldn't watch this movie. It's like not a movie for you. Even if you're like a horror fan, but you're like a horror fan because you liked the Jason movies back in the day, it's not that either. It's like really pretty extreme. I remember there was a movement like maybe 10 years ago, maybe longer than that, that really probably hit its peak with the movie Martyrs, which I saw. Okay. It was like French extreme horror.
Oh, like High Tension and things like that.
Sure, that was involved in that movement as well. And Martyrs is a really good movie that I never want to see again, because it had some images in it that I was just not comfortable putting in my brain, I would say. And this reminded me of that, but had one key element that made it a little less of kind of like a, I respected Martyrs, but at the same time, I was like, I can't watch any more of these. Like,
Yeah.
whatever this movement is, it's just not for me. But there was an element in this one that kept me engaged. I'm not saying that I'm ready to like mainline this on a nightly basis, but I'm not afraid of it like I was after I watched Martyrs. And it's probably because of the satirical nature of the movie.
Right.
Like it went as so far and was just so like hyper stylized, I would say, and it was taking itself seriously while also not taking itself seriously at the same time, that every time it went a step over what I thought already was the line you shouldn't step over, it did it in such a ridiculous, over the top fashion that it was way easier to laugh off.
Yeah.
I would say. For better or for worse. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's a thing that happened while I was watching. And so when I was done and reflecting on some of the things that the movie had depicted, it's all kind of gross. But while I was watching it, I didn't feel gross, which is a feeling that I got when I was watching Martyrs. So that doesn't really tell you what I thought about the movie. It's more of a warning, I guess, to people, because I know we have all shades that listen to us.
Right.
And I'm just saying, if those shades concern you at all, they should, and you shouldn't watch it. If those shades don't concern you, then watch it and form your own opinion. Who wants to go first on what they actually think about it?
I'll go first.
All right, Kyle.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I was definitely probably the one of the three of us who championed this movie.
Hold on.
Just because. Oh, yes.
Before you do, why don't we just
Please.
guess what the other two people is going to think about this very quickly? I think both Kyle and Zach liked it.
Okay. I don't think Zach liked it. I think James liked it.
I think Kyle loved it. I think James loved it.
All right. Go ahead, Kyle.
Cool.
Because you're a bunch of sickos.
Yeah, I feel very good about my prediction on Zach right now. Yeah, so like, I think I kind of championed this movie. I know a couple people wrote in, and I was like, "Hey guys, I think we got to do this. When should we do this? Let's put it on the calendar." And then the more I learned about it, the more I was like, "Ooh, do I actually want to see this? Am I getting myself? Have I painted myself into a corner here? Where I'm going to watch a movie that's going to disgust me and just be a brutal watch?" And I was like, all right, I'm going to sit down and watch this movie. And yeah, there are definitely squeamish moments, and there was definitely things I'd seen on film I'd never seen before. But Zach, you're right. I loved this movie. Like I was never bored for the entire 2+ hours it was running. This movie is very blunt about its messaging, if that's the best way to put it. Like, it's not subtle. You exactly know what its message is, but it's presented in such a stylized way, in such almost, I'm going to say, a fun way at times, if that's the best. I don't call this movie fun, but I think this movie has fun with what it's doing. I haven't seen Demi Moore in anything in a long time, and I was really enjoying her in this movie, especially as things get weirder. She becomes more unhinged, is the best way to put it. And I was loving everything she was doing as her unhinged character. Then at the same time, you have Margaret Qualley, who is like playing this best version of a young actress who just wants more and more. And I was totally on board with her performance of this character. You have what's his name? Dennis Quaid, right? And he's obviously playing every sleazy, smarmy, gross man in the entertainment industry. Like, he's just sort of a cipher for all gross men in entertainment. And it's very obvious how gross he is, but he's doing such a great job with that role and with that performance the whole way through this movie, I was just astounded. I was enjoying every moment of it. If you can enjoy this movie, if that makes sense. I really have nothing terribly negative to say about it, to be completely honest. Maybe if I had one criticism, it kind of hits you over its head with its message. But I didn't find many faults in this movie whatsoever.
Interesting. Very interesting. James, what'd you think?
I also loved it.
Yep.
So Zach was right. I mean, add this one to the list of movies not to watch with your mom. I don't know what to say beyond what Kyle said.
This is a hard movie to recommend to people.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you kind of have to know a good deal about their movie taste to recommend this to somebody. Like, I would default to not recommending it to people, and only a select few would I recommend it to, because I would know what they like. I think I loved it, but also I'm conflicted with loving it, I would say, because it does, like, from a content perspective, it sets out to achieve something, and I think it did achieve that thing. And it did it without pulling any punches or, compromising at all. I can't imagine what a compromise would look like if this is the final product. So I'm assuming this is exactly what they wanted to put on screen.
Right.
It did it without unintentionally without I felt like, okay, so some horror movies, especially movies with extreme gore, I think are sometimes not considerate of the audience, right? It's like the filmmakers trying to make you mad. Or
they're trying to turn you off.
Like rape revenge movies and stuff like that. Like they're trying to brutalize the audience with what's going on, I would say. Even movies like Funny Games, which isn't specifically gory or, graphic, is a movie that's trying to piss you off while you watch it. And I don't think this movie was trying to do that. I think it was exaggerating a very real problem in order to kind of make a point, and also having fun at the same time, which is weird, because the point is a very serious one. And I think it does beat you over the head with why they're doing this, why they're putting these visuals on screen, why they're telling the story the way they're telling it. And I think they probably could have gotten their point across in other ways, but I'm not sure they could have gotten it across as clearly in a roundabout way as putting them to these visuals type of thing. Like, I think some of the themes, non-spoiler, are like, body issues as you age, which certainly applies to females, but also applies to males. There's a scene in this movie where or a sequence in this movie where Demi Moore, she's definitely feeling like she wasn't as attractive as her younger self, and she's about to go on a date that she probably wouldn't have taken if she wasn't already like a little depressed and not feeling good about herself. So she dresses for the date. She thinks she's feeling good. She's about to walk out the door, and something triggers into her that, like, she doesn't look good enough. And so she goes back into the bathroom and she gussies up a little more, and then she's about to walk out the door and something else triggers her, and she goes back into the bathroom and changes her appearance again. And that's a thing I've done. You know what I mean? As a male in my 40s, where I'm like ready to go out the door, I'm about to go hang out with people or go see a client or whatever, and I'm just very aware of what I look like, and like it's an insecurity, I would say. And we all have them. This movie makes it a horror film. You know what I mean? And not only that, but I know women have this pressure even worse than men. And so the idea that a woman is at the center of this body horror movie which I can't really think of too many body horror movies where women are the center of them. I'm sure there are examples out there, but I couldn't think of any. I haven't seen that, believe it or not.
It's good.
It's a Kurosawa movie?
No, Cronenberg.
No.
Cronenberg.
Cronenberg.
Okay. One of his earliest, right?
Black Swan dips into body horror.
For sure.
Yeah. So they're out there clearly, but I just I've never seen one so crystally about that, I would say, amongst other things. Also, it does a great job at showing what outside influences would create such a fear in somebody. The environment she was in, certainly the career choice she made, those types of things certainly elevated it in her specific situation. And I thought all of that was effective, maybe more effective than like a straight drama that didn't have kind of this farcical, over the top tone to it. And so I can't think of anything that would have hammered that home any harder than what they put on screen. And I think that was the goal, is to hammer this home to the point where you could not ignore what the filmmaker was trying to say.
Right.
That being said, like the last 15 minutes of the movie was like, I think more just people having fun with this idea that we're just going to take this to the nth degree, like as far as we can realistically on a budget take this. Other things that impress me that are not specific to that is like the practical makeup in this. I just really miss practical makeup. It's clear that if they made investments in practical makeup, it's gotten to the point where it's just it can be really well done. Not only the makeup, but the non-digital blood in this was there was a lot of it, and it was all over the place, and it was kind of impressive just how far they took it, and it just looks so different than digital blood for sure. Not necessarily convincing, but different. And the acting, Demi Moore, just it's cliched to say somebody's brave in a performance, but I mean, when you lay it all out like that in more ways than one, and I haven't seen you in a long time in anything, I just was like, where has Demi Moore been? Like, what scripts was she passing on if this is the one where she's like, yes, let's do this? You know what I mean? It's it definitely put her back on the map for me, as like I want to see whatever she follows us up with. It's probably not going to be anything like this, but she can still do it. That's for sure. Dennis Quaid, another guy. I can't even honestly say I've ever been like a huge Dennis Quaid fan. And I don't know if it's the way they shot him. It's a combination of the way they shot him, the editing, and just his mannerisms in this movie. Like you could tell he fully understood why he was in this movie.
Yeah, he knew the role he had to play. He knew the character he had to capture.
And just like, I'm all over the place. I feel like I'm saying a lot of things, but not really going into much on any of them. But like in just using him as an example, because it's relatively spoiler free. One, they named him Harvey. So it's like, they're telling you just by his name, like who he's supposed to be on some level, like on a broad, character level. Then they like put him in these boots where every time he walks anywhere, he's like stomping for some reason. Like his mannerism is stomping. He's like definitely doing like a Vince McMahon, like Donkey Kong thing every time he walks around. And then they're like zooming in on his mouth and like the disgusting facial features that he has constantly.
With a fisheye to make it worse.
And he's licking his lips constantly with like the worst sounds you can imagine being ADR'd onto it and stuff like that. And just the combination of all of those things made you feel gross just being in the room with him. And then you add on all of Demi Moore's character's insecurities, and you realize like how she got this way, or like how that helped contribute to her getting this way. And so it's all those things. That's why I loved it. It's like performance, execution, direction, editing, the construction of this movie was flawless, I would say, to me. And so, spoiler free, that's why I loved it. Zach,
Tell us why you loved
I've been talking way too long. Tell us why you loved it.
You apparently did love it. I would have loved to watch this movie with you guys.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a huge missed opportunity to watch it with other people that have not seen it.
I would have loved to
Yeah.
seen it in a theater for sure.
Yeah, see with other people for sure.
I've read some reports of other people seen in the theater and the crowd is just going nuts, laughing and having a lot of fun. And other theaters where they're stone silent the entire time. And that just sounds like the worst.
Sure.
To be in a stone silent theater.
While this is playing.
Yeah, I think it's undeniable this movie's fantastic.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
All right.
I mean, it is again, it's not a movie you recommend to anyone if you want to maintain a relationship. But yeah, it's crazy. But it's so well done.
Yeah.
Some things I want to highlight. James obviously has covered most of these things. That just happens if you talk for an hour. But I'm just joking. I'm just teasing you.
No, it's fair.
Stars of the show. The sound design is so in your face.
Yeah.
And honestly, I found that way more unsettling than any body horror that it had.
Mm-hmm.
Like Dennis Quaid eating shrimp is probably the most nightmarish thing in this movie.
And it happens like in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah. If you had to
Yeah.
play something on loop for 2 hours to get me to confess to some state secrets, that's the scene that would do it.
What about this song they play for Margaret Qualley's workout video?
That was pretty bad too.
I don't remember it actually.
I don't remember per se. I just remember being like loud and thumpy and like very in your face.
Yeah. The makeup design, is incredible. It's really good. I think this is Demi Moore's best performance, honestly. I mean, she acts her heart out, even to the very end of the movie. I mean, she just really going all out, and she knows the assignment. And we'll talk about it in spoilers, but I want to highlight the cooking scene. She's either when she's cooking in the kitchen, and her performance there is just pitch perfect. And that scene is funny, but it's also like super well, like thematically placed. It's a great scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Demi Moore is fantastic in that. Dennis Quaid, fantastic in this. Yep. He I mean, the getting that close to the camera does a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
But and his clothes, I mean, yeah, he's got quite the outfits.
Like
but
his shiny
I just
suits and
yeah,
everything.
yeah. But he is perfectly knows his assignment. I mean, like 100% knows his assignment. Yeah, Margaret Qualley is good too. I just was really impressed by Demi Moore, her performance most. You guys haven't really talked about the sci-fi aspect of this, the substance itself.
Mm-hmm.
How it works. Yeah. Like the mechanics of it is super clever.
It is. Although, I mean, if you really want to start parsing things, it's a little confusing what actually is happening or how it all works, that kind of thing, especially when it has to do with mentally how it works.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately it doesn't matter at all. That's not what it's about. If I had any criticism about the movie, it's just with how bluntly it talks about what it wants to talk about. It does last a long time, right? Like you get the message very quickly and then you just continue to get the same message.
Mm-hmm.
Like the message doesn't deepen, it just ratchets up, but it's the same kind of simple message that you've gotten in the first 20 minutes. And that being said, it explores that, and it's a good message to explore. And it's interesting that it takes an actress like Demi Moore, who obviously anyone can have insecurities, right? But she's still like a beautiful 50-year-old woman. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But like to what you said, James, that scene where she's getting ready for the date, I think is the strongest scene in the film. Like
Mhm.
that's the one that probably is most going to stand out to me as like why this film is great, is that scene. And it was heartbreaking. It was like it was like watching Requiem for a Dream.
Mhm.
In that kind of like relatable yet just awful to watch on screen kind of scene. So yeah, the movie's really well done. And then it gets, I would say it's a little harder edged in the first half, and then as it goes on, it really leans into the humor
Mhm.
a lot more.
Yeah.
By the end, it's just we pulled out the paints already, so we might as well use them,
Mhm.
And yeah, it was fun to watch, but I would have loved to watch it with you guys.
Yeah,
Nice.
I think watching it by myself is a missed opportunity versus watching with a crowd with you guys.
Yeah.
Um,
Now, did Galen watch it with you?
you know, he doesn't quite understand. The shrimp scene turned him off.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got
We
as far as
started,
that,
but
and he's
yeah.
like, "Oh, shellfish, I'm out." So
Yeah,
no,
for sure.
no, this was a movie I purposely watched when both Megan and Galen were out of town. So I was like, I do not want Galen walking out in the middle of any of this and be like, "Hey, what's going on?" Like, there's nothing in this movie I want him to see. Not a single scene I want him to see in this movie. And I knew Megan would be completely turned off by this movie. So I was like, all right, they're both gone this weekend. I'm going to watch this movie, even though we're not doing it for a week afterwards. I'm just going to get out of the way and I can just enjoy it or not enjoy it in the peace and quiet of knowing that no one's going to walk in on me watching this movie.
It's definitely one of those where you'd have a lot of explaining to do across like 50% of the movie if somebody just walked in and you
Oh,
were
for
like
sure.
trying to catch them up to convince them you're not a weirdo
Exactly.
for
What's
watching
happening
this.
now? Yeah.
You'd be like, hold on, let me pause it. So let me explain to you how we got here. I mean, by the end, if you paused like the stage scene at the end and you tried to explain what was going on in that scene, it might take you another 2 hours to get there,
I mean, and
to
like,
justify what you're watching, I would say.
that moment is so extreme that it's not even like gross anymore.
It was sad. It was just sad.
Right. It is tragic what you're watching.
It was
at that
like,
point.
spoiler free, it was just a visual representation of like somebody's like self-reflection, I would say, or like what they had become on the inside, just a jumbled, confused mess.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk more about it in spoilers for sure.
I think we covered the whole thing. I think we're fine. We could buy Letterboxd and go on to our game.
Okay. That's probably fair.
Nothing else to say, right, guys?
No.
Okay, let's letterbox this out of 5 stars. What are you guys gonna give The Substance?
I mean, I've thought about this for a week, and I can't not justify 5 stars.
Okay.
I also give it 5 stars.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to go 4.5.
Okay.
Almost a perfect. Have we ever given perfect scores with the 3 of us?
Of course.
Like what?
Of new release movies. Obviously, like Back to the Future
yeah.
movies. Yeah. I'm talking something recent.
Something we recently reviewed. I don't think
Fury Road. Are we all 5 stars in Fury Road?
We didn't review that, all 3 of us at the same time.
Okay, that's a good point.
I'm talking about on the podcast. I don't think we ever have. Okay, 2 5s and a 4.5 for The Substance. If you're listening to this on a podcast app, then wait till after the credits to hear our spoiler discussion on The Substance. If you're watching on YouTube, jump to the spoiler video in the link in the description.